Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are undertaking, well, a pretty massive deep dive into just one single really key piece of recent research. It's one that fundamentally tries to standardize and kind of reshape how we understand the European landscape wise. Our focus is this paper titled Alien Plants of Europe, an overview of national and regional inventories.
That's right. And this paper, the lead author is Kalusová, published just this year, 2024. It really represents an incredible effort to update our whole state of knowledge on this. Their mission was, well, colossal seemed like the right word, gather every available national and regional checklist on alien plants, which, as you can imagine, is a huge, decentralized, often messy stack of data.
Yeah, scatter all over the place, I bet.
Exactly. And then compile it, standardize it, and unify it across Europe. The ultimate goal here was identifying the true scope, how many alien plants are we actually talking about, and also pinpointing where the data gaps and, frankly, the inconsistencies are causing problems.
And maybe before we wade into the taxonomy and the methods, we should probably stress why this matters so much right now. Why count these plants?
We really should, because the economic consequence alone is just staggering.
Right. Your sources mention this figure, the estimated total cost linked to invasive alien species in Europe just between 1960 and 2020.
Yeah, get this. 116.61 billion.
Billion with a B.
Exactly. And listen to this part. 60% of that astronomical figure was pure damage-related costs.
Wow. So not even the money spent trying to fix it, just the cost of the damage they caused?
Precisely. Not just management costs, pure damage. 116 billion problem. Well, it absolutely demands standardized data, doesn't it?
It really does. And as the paper shows, getting that standardized data is, well, it's the hard part. And we know this whole accumulation thing isn't exactly slowing down either.
No, not at all. Vascular plants, so your flowering plants, ferns, that group, they are by far the most species-rich alien group introduced. And the data shows the accumulation of naturalized species, the ones setting up shop permanently, has been almost linear since the start of the 20th century.
Just a steady climb.
A steady, relentless climb. And it's clearly linked to, well, global trade expanding and the huge long-term import of ornamental and horticultural plants. We're basically constantly feeding the system with potential new arrivals.
Okay, so let's unpack this massive data cleanup project they undertook. I mean, getting 55 European territories, countries, regions, big islands to agree on anything sounds tough, let alone standardizing plant lists from 111 different inventories. How did they manage that? What was the secret sauce?
Yeah, secret sauce. So it was basically rigorous methodology. They tackled the three main areas where things get messy. Step one was taxonomy and nomenclature. It's just getting the names right. They unified all the scientific names using major kind of gold standard databases, mostly Euro plus MedPlantBase and Plants of the World Online, POWO. Just making sure that when they said, I don't know, Robinia pseudoacacia, everyone knew exactly which tree they meant, regardless of the local name or slight variations.
Right. Standardizing the name is step one. Absolutely crucial. What about history? Like, how long has the plant actually been here?
Good question. That was step two. Residence time. They needed a consistent dividing line, between the old aliens and the new ones. So they used 1500 CE as the general cutoff date, roughly.
Okay. So pre-Columbus and post-Columbus, more or less.
Pretty much. Species introduced before that date are called archaeophytes. Think Roman aroids, maybe. Species introduced after 1500 are neophytes, the newcomers, relatively speaking.
Okay, that makes sense. But you said general cutoff.
Right, because they had to be a bit flexible. They acknowledged regional history. So in some northern places, like Sweden or Iceland, where maybe intense human activity and introductions happen later, they used slightly later cutoffs. I think it was 1700 CE for Sweden, 1750 for Iceland, which is just good science, right? Adjusting for context.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, name sorted, introduction date sorted.
Yeah.
What about the big one, the risk level? How did they standardize invasion status?
Right. This is maybe the most important one for management. They aligned everything with what researchers call the introduction, naturalization, invasion continuum. You can kind of think of it like stages. A casual species is like a temporary visitor. It pops up maybe near ports or gardens, but it needs repeated help, usually human introductions, to stick around.
Okay, so it can't really sustain itself.
Exactly. Then you have naturalized species. These are like permanent residents. They've established self-sustaining populations. They don't need our help anymore. They're breeding on their own.
Got it. And the last category?
That's invasive. These are the ones causing major problems. They're naturalized, plus they're spreading rapidly, often producing huge numbers of offspring. And critically, they're moving into and disrupting natural or semi-natural habitats. They're the hostile takeover, as you put it earlier.
Okay, casual, naturalized, invasive. Clear enough. But what did they do when, say, Germany listed a plant as naturalized, but France called it invasive? That must happen all the time.
Oh, constantly. And that's a key methodological choice they made. They applied the rule of higher status attained. So for the big overall pan-European count, they assigned that plant the highest threat level it reached anywhere in Europe.
Ah, I see. So even if it's only invasive in one tiny region, it gets flagged as invasive for the whole European pool.
Precisely. It's a precautionary approach, basically. It prevents us from underestimating the potential risk just because a species hasn't exploded everywhere yet.
That feels like a strong, sensible choice for understanding the potential threat level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So after all that sifting, cleaning, standardizing, what's the headline? What's the new big number for alien plants in Europe?
The core discovery is, well, it's pretty striking. The Unified European Alien Flora Pool now stands at a mammoth 7,355 alien vascular plant species.
Wow. 7,335. How does that compare to previous estimates?
It's a significant jump. That's 1,546 more species than were recorded in the last major pan-European study, which was published back in 2008.
Over 1,500 new species documented in, what, about 15 years? That's a lot.
It really is. The numbers aren't just creeping up, they're accelerating.
So looking at that huge pool, the 7,335 species, if we break it down by that residence time thing, archaeophytes versus neophytes, who dominates?
Oh, it's overwhelmingly the neophytes, the post-1500 arrivals. They make up 77.2% of the total species pool.
So 3/4 are relatively recent introductions, historically speaking. Exactly. It really shows the profound impact of, the aged exploration, colonialism, and especially modern global trade. Only a tiny fraction, just 1.5%, are categorized exclusively as archaeophytes, the really old introductions. And interestingly, there's still about 12% where the status is undistinguished. The data just wasn't clear enough to confidently say if they arrived before or after 1500.
Okay, so mostly neophytes. Now, what about that invasion status, the risk profile? Across Europe, highest status achieved. Where do most of these 7,335 species fall? Casual, naturalized, or invasive?
Right, so the largest group at 36.3% are naturalized. They're established, self-sustaining residents.
Okay, over a third are settled in.
Exactly. Following pretty closely behind are the casual species at 33.3%. Those temporary ones, often dependent on repeated human help.
So about 2/3 are either temporary or established, but not necessarily widespread invaders yet.
That leaves the invasive category. According to this highest status attained rule, 13.4% of the total pool are classified as invasive in at least one European territory.
Only 14.4%. I mean, that's still over 1,000 species, which is scary. But you hear so much about invasive species. Why worry so much about the other, 86%? Isn't focusing on that 14% the most efficient use of resources?
That's a really important point. We worry because that line between naturalized and invasive isn't fixed. It's constantly being crossed as species adapt or find new opportunities. Think of the naturalized pool, that 36.3%, as a huge reservoir of potential future invaders. They've already overcome the hurdles of arrival and establishment. Spreading might just be a matter of time or changing conditions. And the casuals, they're the feeder population, the ones constantly knocking at the door. So yeah, that 14.4% figure represents the current active threat, but the high percentage of naturalized species is what really keeps ecologists and managers awake at night. It signifies major latent risk.
Okay, that makes sense. It's a pipeline. So let's zoom in on that 14.4%, the ones currently classified as invasive somewhere. Are there a few super invaders that are successful pretty much everywhere?
Yes, but it's a surprisingly small group that achieves really widespread success. The study found only 114 species, that's just 1.6% of the total alien pool, occur in more than half of the territory studied, so 28 or more out of 55.
Only 1.6% are truly continental players.
Pretty much. The vast majority of alien species, something like 2/3, are actually documented in 5 or fewer territories. Most introductions, statistically, just fizzle out locally or remain quite restricted.
Interesting. So who are the champions, the top few, most widespread alien species across Europe? I bet we'd recognize some names.
I think you would. The top 4 are Erigeron canadensis.
Canadian fleabane. That stuff is everywhere.
Exactly, that's the one. Then Amaranthus retroflexus.
Pigweed. Another common one.
Yeah, reed root pigweed. Then Galansoga parviflora, often called quickweed or gallant soldier. And number 4 is Robinia pseudoacacia.
Black locust. The
Yeah.
tree, yeah, you see that planted a lot, but also spreading on its own. Okay, those make sense. And you said Erigeron canadensis was the absolute top.
Undisputed champion, yes. It was found in 53 out of the 55 territories they looked at. 53.
Wow, practically everywhere.
And it's considered invasive in 27 of those territories, more than half the places it occurs. Its success is likely down to a few things. Tiny seeds that travel miles on the wind, it grows super fast, completes its life cycle quickly, and it's incredibly adaptable. It loves disturbed ground roadsides, fields, wastelands. Other studies actually call it probably the most widely distributed naturalized plant species in the whole world's temperate zone.
A true global weed. Okay, so we know who some of the big players are. What about where they all came from? This huge pool of over 7,000 species. What parts of the world contributed the most?
Right, looking at the origins for the entire pool, the highest proportions actually come from temperate Asia, about 20.4%.
Okay, Central Asia, China, Japan, that sort of region.
Exactly. Followed very closely by temperate Europe itself, 19.6%. So plants moved within Europe to new areas, and then the Mediterranean region contributing 19.0%. So Asia, Europe itself, and the Med Basin, that's where the sheer number, the richness of alien species originates from.
Okay, and you hinted at this, does that picture change if we only look at the origins of the species that become invasive, the really troublesome ones?
It changes dramatically, and this, I think, is one of the really key insights of the paper. When you isolate just the invasive species, the ones causing ecological disruption, they predominantly originate from the American continent. North and South America together account for 22.9% of the invasive pool.
So the Americas contribute fewer species overall compared to Asia, but the ones that do arrive are more likely to become invasive.
That seems to be the pattern, yes. Temperate Asia is still important for invasives, second at 19.7%, but the Americas, especially North America, really stand out. The thinking is that species coming from similar climates and latitudes, like much of North America compared to Europe, might be sort of pre-adapted. They find open ecological niches, maybe they escape the pests and diseases that kept them in check back home, and they just take off.
That's fascinating. A real difference in invasion potential based on origin. And quickly, for the plant folks listening, any particular plant families that dominate the alien list?
Oh, yeah, the usual suspects, really.
Yeah.
So mostly driven by those neophytes, the recent arrivals. Asteraceae, the daisy family, Poaceae, the grass family, Rosaceae, the rose family, and Fabaceae, the pea or legume family.
Lots of seeds, good colonizers. Makes sense.
Exactly.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly to the limitations. And this feels really important. The researchers did an incredible job compiling data, but they were very clear that major gaps and inconsistencies are still there, which raises that question again. How confident can we really be in our pan-European picture if the data quality varies so much from place to place?
Yeah, that's the crucial caveat. The confidence level varies wildly depending on where you look in Europe.
Yeah.
They detailed two main limitations. First, the categorization itself. Casual, naturalized, invasive is often incomplete. They only had that full detailed breakdown for 43.6% of the territories.
Yeah.
Less than half.
Wait, hang on. Less than half the territories provided the full picture. What about the others?
Well, some just provided partial info. But alarmingly, about 20%, one-fifth of the territories, only listed invasive species.
Just the invasive ones. So they're completely ignoring the casuals and the naturalized species that are, as you said, warming up on the bench or already established.
That seems to be the case for those inventories, yes.
That seems incredibly short-sighted if you want to do any kind of early warning or proactive management. You're only counting the fires that are already raging.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
It means you're blind to the potential problems brewing. That was the first big limitation. The second was residence time. Only 40% of territories clearly distinguish between the old archaeophytes and the newer neophytes.
Only 40%. Wow. So most places aren't consistently tracking when these plants arrived either.
Not consistently, no.
Yeah.
And these data gaps, both for invasion status and residence time, were particularly bad in certain regions. They highlighted the Balkan Peninsula and northeastern Europe as major areas needing better data.
And the paper gave some pretty stark examples of how these inconsistencies mess things up, right? Like the same plant being classified differently just across a border.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
They mentioned Veronica persica, Persian speedwell. It's native to northwest Iran, first spotted in Europe around 1805. So clearly it should be a neophyte, a post-1500 arrival. But in Corsica, it's listed as an archaeophyte, an ancient introduction, which just doesn't fit the known history. Or, even more clearly, things like Amaranthus albus and Amaranthus blatoides, tumbleweeds, basically. They're from the Americas, definitely neophytes. But in the Turkish inventory, they were listed as archaeophytes.
So these aren't just minor quibbles. They're fundamental misclassifications that skew our understanding of invasion history and timelines.
Precisely. And they seem quite persistent in some of the regional lists. Then there was one more category issue, the cultivated plants.
Ah, yeah, the garden escapes. That sounds like a nightmare to track consistently.
It is, and the study confirmed it's not really being done systematically yet. That category plants grown in gardens that have the potential to escape was only properly separated out in 3 territories. The authors basically said it's currently incomplete, highly subjective, and probably just reflects a selection of known escapees rather than a full picture of everything that could jump the garden fence.
So pulling it all together, the study confirms this really substantial, kind of worrying increase in the number of alien plants we know about in Europe. The impact of trade and horticulture is undeniable.
Absolutely. Confirmation of a major increase in the documented richness. But, and it's a big but, that very growth in data throws the inconsistencies into sharp relief. The variable quality, the different ways things are categorized across countries, it really hinders our ability to do solid, reliable pan-European analysis and make comparisons. Like you said earlier, you can't effectively fight an invasion if you can't even agree on who the invaders are, where they came from, or when they arrived.
So what's the bottom line here? What does this all mean for actually trying to manage European ecosystems going forward?
Well, the clear message is that updated standardized national checklists are absolutely essential. This kind of huge synthesis relies on that ground-level local expert knowledge. The crucial next step is integrating that local expertise properly into the bigger specialized databases, things like GLONAF, the Global Naturalized Alien Flora Database, or GBIF, the Global Biodiversity Information Facility. Getting the local data cleaned up and fed into those standardized global systems is how we improve accuracy and give policymakers the consistent information they actually need to make decisions. Without that rigorous standardization push, management efforts are just going to stay fragmented and, likely, less effective than they could be.
Right. Which leads us to a final, maybe provocative thought for you, the listener, to consider. If this study strongly suggests that species from the Americas are disproportionately driving the invasive end of the spectrum, and we know globalization and trade aren't stopping, meaning more plants will arrive, what urgent practical steps need to be taken right now to standardize how we classify species status, especially in those identified high-risk data gap regions like the Balkans and northeastern Europe? How do we get ahead of the curve to preempt that next wave of potentially damaging invaders, using the knowledge we've just gained about where our blind spots are? The future really seems to be about funding that critical reassessment work and applying it to management immediately.